Hi everyone, welcome to another sunny day in Warsaw. How about that? Summer's still clinging on just about, even though we're now into September. We'll see how long this lasts. Anyway, so as you see, I'm out and about as usual. And I reflect occasionally. I'm a very reflective person. And I just think about how grateful I am and how fortunate I feel that I've given myself this life now. It's amazing, and it's like getting up in the morning and going out and doing my thing. It's kind of second nature at the moment. I have my little routine. I get up, I go out, I do my thing, and I live my life. And it's just like I'm getting into a point where things are becoming a kind of mundane now, which is great. That's exactly what I wanted, by the way. But I wasn't born like this. I didn't pop into existence where one day I was in previous me mode and then the next day I was like this. There's been a very long process for me to get here, and that has meant facing a lot of fears, getting through a lot of barriers that I never thought that I would have to, or I'd never be able to pass through, and just constantly pushing the boundaries of what I thought was even possible to arrive here. And I thought, because I see in various spaces people often struggle with things like confidence, and I've had a couple of conversations with friends and they talk about the fear of being out in the world themselves. And so I thought maybe I'd share a few things that I did that helped me get to this point today. I suppose if I was to put a title to how I got to this place, I would say a little and often. But it's not a very catchy title, I suppose. It's not going to be on the New York bestsellers list or whatever. But it was little bits here and there, looking for little pockets where I felt kind of safe, but also a bit boundary pushing as well. So I've already talked a bit about my fun trip to Kuala Lumpur, and that being the first time I ever went out, made up, presenting female. And that was a massive step. But I'm not sure if that counts, to be honest, because first of all, it was, Jesus, these plants, wow. Either I'm far too tall or they are way too low. So this trip to KL was a holiday. And so it's, I think, quite easy to make that disconnection from things like holidays and your real day-to-day life, your normal life. And I think to get to this point, it has to become sort of normalized within your own head. You can't just jump into it, because that's a bit of a shock to the system. You have to kind of ease yourself in, like it's a comfortable, but also slightly initially hot bath. And so, I looked for little opportunities to do like little bits and bobs here and there. So for instance, COVID was a big one, because there I was working from home, which meant I could appear on camera looking like maybe I'm wearing a shirt or something, but in fact it's a dress, but you would never know. So that helped me to kind of get used to presenting in this way in a work environment. And then when the lockdowns ended and I went back to the office, I gave up my chinos and dress shirts and I started wearing more kind of ambiguous clothing. I would be wearing tops and trousers from women's sections. And even though I still passed as male then, it helped me to feel that I was integrating more of a feminine vibe to my overall style. And even though that wasn't necessarily picked up on by my colleagues, consciously, maybe subconsciously, they noticed the sort of softening to my presentation. I grew my hair as well around then too. So I think there was a definite change in my style and my approach to how I presented myself in the office. Beyond that, I felt very uncomfortable using spaces which I felt were female coded or something. So for instance, I would go for manicures and pedicures, and initially I felt very self-conscious, very much like I was intruding, even though these aren't really single gender spaces. You see men using manicure services all the time. I knew why I was there, and so I felt that I would be seen through and I would be thrown out and rejected or whatever it was. People would see that I wasn't necessarily there because I wanted to look good. I wanted to look more like me. And again, it was incremental. So initially I would go just to get my nails cut and shaped and maybe have a bit of clear polish over the top. And then I got these little colored dots. One Pride month several years ago. And I kind of took it from there. I started off getting more kind of stronger colors, so blacks, navy blues, that sort of thing, which again you see lots of males wearing. So I could, point to that and say, look, I'm not doing this for any other reason than wanting to show that I'm some kind of rebel or whatever. But then I started using a wider range of colors, and this all leads up to today, where yesterday I went for a manicure, got a really nice set of reds, and I don't feel too conscious about that anymore. It feels like this is just as much my space as it is for anybody else. Similarly, clothes shopping, again, I felt very uncomfortable walking through these spaces. And again, I know that these aren't necessarily single gendered areas. You see men in women's clothing section all the time. But again, I knew I was there for a specific purpose. And yeah, the more I was there, the more I bought clothes from these shops, the more comfortable I felt there, the more like these were my spaces. These weren't women's clothing. They didn't have this sort of sense of, this emotional frisson, for want of a better word. It just became my clothing. This is where I shop now. These are my clothes, and this is a space that I should use because this is where I get my outfits from. So this all feels like I was just doing tiny small things, but that's not always true. So I always looked forward to Halloween's, and we would throw a party, and at that party I would wear a costume, and of course this was a dress that I'd purchased from my favorite store, Risk Made in Warsaw. Still on the hunt for a sponsorship from them. And I would go wearing this costume, and I would do this every year, and I think at some point people just kind of got used to me presenting in that way. And beyond that presentation, it also gave me opportunities to have that coming out conversation with a few people, and there it felt like I had a bit more control, I want to say. It was in my flat, so it was my sort of safe space with people that I trusted. These were friends and colleagues, and I could sort of push that boundary a little bit further. I mean, coming out as a process was definitely incremental. It took me from, I think Carolina was the first person I came out to, and that was back in 2000, 18, 19. It was a long time ago. And so obviously that was a long time before I started transitioning and before I came out to everybody. And I think that was quite helpful because that incrementality to it helped me get accustomed to talking about it with other people. It got Carolina accustomed to this being a part of my life, and I guess by extension our lives. And it meant that I was traveling at a pace which I was comfortable with. I never felt like things were kind of spiraling out of control, that I was doing things too fast. Even though at times it felt like I was barely making any progress at all and that things were moving far too slowly, I also recognized the value in that patience, because you need a lot of patience to do this. And you also need to be quite fair to yourself as well. This last 18 months has been exhausting, and I think that I hadn't had to do everything. I mean, I talked about learning makeup in a few videos ago, and even having kind of got past a lot of those little barriers, a lot of those little psychological hurdles, it's still been a lot. So I'm quite grateful for the fact that I'd managed to help myself, give myself a bit of space, give myself a bit of time, give myself a few elements of progress before launching into the bigger program of actual transitioning. So yeah, and I just want to point out, just before I finish, that, you know, people, when I came out initially, they called me brave, got accused of being brave a lot, and I kind of rejected that initially because I don't see this as a choice in the sense that I need to do this. This isn't a real choice for me. It's a necessity. So you often find yourselves doing things challenging because you have to. I always feel slightly uncomfortable when sick children are labeled as brave. I read a book by a Native American where he was maybe uncomfortable with being called resilient, because what other option do you have? It's either you do this or you are wiped out. So at the time I was like, no, I'm not brave, I'm just surviving. This is what I need to do in order to just live. But as I look back at the things that I've accomplished over the last 6 years, 4 decades. I'm not quite that old yet. There have been a lot of instances where I've had to push through challenging obstacles, things that terrified me. I have had to be brave in many points across this. Stepping out of the house, coming to work in a dress for the first time was kind of scary. Coming out to people was terrifying. Meeting my endocrinologist for the first time was incredibly scary. What if I got rejected? So in the spirit of trying to be kind to myself, I do feel it's important that I recognize those steps and the fear that I've had to get past in order to get here, in order to live a life that's mine. And I know that it's quite easy because I felt like this when I started, or even before I'd even begun to consider that transitioning was something for me. I would see people maybe in the same position that I am today, or even many more years down the line, and think, well, goodness, I'll never get there. Look at all of the things that I need to do. And I pushed and I pushed. And I got here, and so I don't want my story to sound like this is some kind of impossible dream where you need to have certain characteristics or qualities to get here. I mean, I'm not a special person, I don't think. I'm quite normal, and I think that's kind of one of the reasons why I wanted to make this channel, because a lot of the people that I see on YouTube are not. They're not like me. They're quite peculiar, and I don't know, maybe I'm less normal than I think I am, but I don't think I'm anything special. I don't think that there's something that I've done that's outside of the reach of anybody else. I mean, okay, yes, there are certain circumstances that I have which allow me to access the resources that I have. I'm not particularly well paid, but I can just about afford private healthcare and treatment. I can afford the meds, I can afford the visits to the endocrinologist, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. I was working in a place where I wasn't especially customer facing, so I didn't have that fear hanging over my head, but yeah, that's all changed now. So I've been talking a lot this year about my work status, and I finally got clarity on where I stand, and it's good news and it's bad news. The good news is I still have a job, which I was most scared about. I couldn't afford to be unemployed. I can't leave Poland for many reasons. I'm here, and I'm not going to say I'm stuck here, but I'm here, and that has to stay like that. But I have a job, so that's good. I can stay in Poland, so that's great. I can continue working with people that I love and have been an essential part of my support team, which is fantastic. But my new job is actually my old job, which means a lot less pay. It means much worse hours, and it means I'm going to be doing a lot more teaching, which means a lot more people-facing stuff, and it is a worry. It is going to be another hurdle that I'm going to have to push through, because, well, I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to detransition just because of the potential of something risky happening, but the chances are someone's going to be displeased that I'm teaching, and that's not something I'm looking forward to. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Right now, it's a lovely sunny day. I'm living my best life. I'm incredibly grateful to myself and to Team Trans Positivity, or my little viewers and big viewers, I guess, some of you maybe. It means a lot. So anyway, I'll wrap up there. I think I've been whittering on too long. So have yourselves a wonderful day, rest of the week, and I'll see you all very soon. Take care. Goodbye.